Chapter 22. Please wake up. A soft and sad voice called out to him to disturb his comfortable sleep. He was feeling incredibly sluggish, so he just ignored their call and fell into the arms of sleep once again. His field of vision, previously dark and dull, suddenly shined when balls of light crowded around him. He knew those things, they were lesser spirits. Naruto waved his ethereal hands to keep them away from him, annoyed with their interruption. It seemed to be a bad move when one descended on his head like a hammer. Naruto-kun, I need you to wake up. Emilia-sama needs you. Please come back. Rem said, holding his hand as he rested on the bed, healing from his injuries. She didn't know what to do after Naruto fell and Emilia was taken from him. So she did what came to her mind at the moment and took him to Beatrice, all pieces of him. To be honest, she didn't think that he would wake up, considering those injuries were enough to put down anyone for a long time. What the hell? Her sky-blue eyes widened in surprise when the previously asleep blonde shot up from his bed with a hand on his forehead. He was looking around the room with a glare, looking for someone. Naruto-kun. Rem cried as she lunged at him, hugging him without giving him a warning. You're okay. This seemed to startle him, but he corresponded to the hug once he saw who was giving it. I'm okay, Remington. The shinobi seemed to be weirded out by the situation for a second until the memories came back to him, erasing the smile off his face. I'm just glad you're awake. She said with a warm smile, moving away from him. What happened since I arrived here? He asked, his face betraying his troubled thoughts. You got hurt bad, we had to put you back together. If it weren't for Beatrice. I don't know what could have happened. Rem said. She squeaked in surprise when the ninja began to remove the bandages on his chest. Naruto. Don't remove them. They're not healed yet. She tried to stop him, but he had already removed them, revealing his lack of injuries or even scars. You worry too much. You remember I can heal, right? He asked with a chuckle, getting a light frown from her. I know that. But I don't want to see you get hurt. You almost died. Rem yelled angrily as she grasped his hand. She had very vivid memories of the blood that began to pool beneath his body. The metallic scent of his blood was very much present in her mind at the moment. Rem. Naruto called as his hand rose and found her cheek. He made her look at him while whipping her tears. I'm sorry for being reckless, I won't do it again. He pulled her into a hug. He meant it. The next time he saw that white-haired bastard, he wouldn't allow him to open his mouth. The truth was that those attacks had hurt him. He was feeling phantom pains coming from his limbs where they were reattached, but Rem didn't need to know that. He made a mental note to thank the bijou for that great regeneration. Rem? Naruto asked, noticing her dazed state as she snapped out of whatever trance she was in. He saw her leave suddenly, but his hand grabbed hers and made her turn around to face him. What's wrong? He frowned when he saw her eyes start to water. I don't get you. You're talking about your injuries as if nothing happened. I was scared. Beatrice was scared. And I'm sure that Emilia-sama is scared and worried sick right now. It seems that the only person here that doesn't care about you is you. And the worst part is that you can't stop yourself from getting hurt. You can't promise me that. She yelled through her tears as Naruto looked at her in surprise at her outburst. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before they narrowed in comprehension. He pulled Rem into a hug, trying to get her to understand that he was here to stay. She fought at first but relented soon after, engulfing the room in silence. Feel better, Rem? Naruto asked her as she nodded in silence, snuggling her face into his chest. I feel better now. Rem replied with an unsure expression as she got up from Naruto's bed and walked toward the dresser, grabbing the white and black clothes for him. Your night uniform was bloody and torn, luckily I brought a spare. She quickly left the room to give him some privacy. A few minutes passed and Naruto finished dressing up. He was about to head out of the room when his reflection caught his eye. He looked well, all things considered. His uniform wasn't very different from the one the knights used regularly. The only thing distinguishing him was a black shirt and an orange tie. His hair had grown very long since he came to this place. He may have to cut it soon. A knock on the door pulled him from his reflection. Are you ready? Came Rem's voice. He quickly opened the door and stepped out. Yes. Rem, where's Beatrice? Naruto asked. He needed to see the spirit he shared a special bond with. Rem's face turned thoughtful. Beatrice is resting after she used her mana to heal you. Without her healing magic, you wouldn't be able to walk with your left leg anymore. She said, remembering the soul-crushing panic the little girl had when she looked at his unconscious form. She was sure that because of said panic the spirit used too much magic and passed out. I see. Naruto said sadly, he had a lot of people to apologize to. I found this very close to you. She handed him a little piece of jewelry. It was cracked and its pristine white color was now tainted with his blood. This is... Naruto took it and looked at it with a thoughtful expression. It was Amelia's hairpin, the one he gifted her. Thank you, Remington. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. The blue-haired maid frowned slightly. There's something you should know about Garfield. Garfield? What happened? Naruto walked upstairs and found an injured Garfield. Garfield, you alright? I heard what happened. He asked as the blonde nodded to him. His hand glowed a pale yellow color, making him frown. That wasn't supposed to glow like that. He shrugged his shoulders and proceeded to heal Garfield with what little he knew of healing chakra. A shame it wasn't as powerful as his mark. Thanks, Cap. He said with a smile as he gave him a thumb up for healing him. His body felt so much better than before. The shinobi nodded to him. You need to tell me everything you know. He said, now that Rem wasn't with him, he could express how pissed off he was. Garfield spent several minutes explaining what happened, and Naruto wasn't happy with what he heard. Another archbishop was in the city. This fuckers just kept appearing out of thin air. This one had even more reinforcements. It seemed that they had a very powerful member capable of inflicting wounds that were capable of negating healing magic completely, according to Mimi, who was now with her faction. That magic was very familiar to Naruto. He hadn't encountered it, but Wilhelm had a very fond memory of that monstrous curse. Flashback. Wilhelm, your shoulder. The two unlikely friends were walking and having a nice conversation in the garden when the older one held his shoulder in pain. Drops of blood stained his white gloves. The younger composed himself and approached with a hand glowing yellow when he was waved away. This wound won't heal. Wilhelm spoke in a dejected tone. It was dealt by an opponent who possessed the divine protection of the Death God. Death God. He said, his past with the deity made him retrieve his hand immediately, knowing the power of the entity, even if it wasn't the same as his own. This wound gets stronger as the opponent is closer. It's such a wound. And this old closed wound has reopened. He said, glaring a hole in the ground. Wait a minute. So the opponent who hurt you is near? Naruto asked, his hand in the hilt of his sword and eyes scanning his surroundings. The one who gave me this wound was the former sword saint, Teresa van Astria. The wound was by my wife's sword. Wilhelm said. But that means... Naruto replied, his fists clenching in indignation. Yes, and the witch cult will pay for it, so I swear. Then I will help you. Flashback ended. Wilhelm had lost his wife a full 15 years ago. Even 1 year ago, he'd certainly not doubted her death. Regardless of the hopelessness of the situation, he trusted that Wilhelm would have the courage to do what was right. The older man couldn't bring himself to say so, but his emotions were obvious to Naruto. He didn't want to fight her. He had seen people die to reanimations in his world, but this time, he wouldn't interfere. He had no intention of ruining another important fight for Wilhelm. After checking on Garfield, he called for the people who he knew would be able to fight this new threat, and while he had a burning desire to get Amelia, he knew innocents could die, something neither of them could just ignore. Naruto took a deep breath and looked at Wilhelm, whose shoulder was being treated by Remington. Wilhelm, thank you for coming so soon. I hope you're ready for your fight. He said softly. He wanted the swordsman to know that he understood his situation. Yes, I'm ready. Wilhelm said with his eyes closed while nodding. I want to know, how was it? Seeing your people be brought back against you. Naruto had talked with Wilhelm about his world, including the war, and the man had been very understanding of his situation even if none of them had any idea how he ended up here. I don't know, my father wasn't against me, but those who experienced the return of their loved ones said it was horrible, impure. Naruto said, remembering the times he and his fellow Konoha shinobi told stories in the fire. So it was like that, huh? I'm sure your father will be proud of you. He smiled in understanding. As a father himself, he could see Minato being very proud of the man Naruto had become. Naruto smiled sadly and looked outside the window at the deceptively beautiful town, wondering if they could see him right now. Hey, Cap. I heard what happened to Amelia. Garfield said slowly, looking at the contemplative Naruto. We'll get her back. As much as I hate Regulus, he wouldn't harm Amelia. Right now, there's more important things to focus on. Naruto said in an impassive tone, but the atmosphere around him told another story. His fists were clenched and the glass he was looking through cracked slightly. Naruto-kyun, you're awake. Naruto heard a delicate voice as a familiar man approached him. Ferris. He greeted him as he looked at the people who were on the beds in the mansion. How's everyone? The people he was talking about were the civilians that Sirius had held hostage. Since he didn't know the location of the hospital, he dropped them in the mansion and asked Ferris for help, so they had a little clinic here. They're fine. It's not too serious. Ferris said as he looked at them. What happened to them? The witch cult. Indeed, those guys are the worst. I was too naive. I never expected them to pull something like this. Of course, no one else was expecting this either. I'm very impressed that you stopped the Sin Archbishop of Wrath and took her to prison alive. Your clone was very helpful in explaining what happened. He said. You don't have to worry about it. My clone told the chief of the prison how her abilities work. Let's have faith that they'll be able to keep her there. Naruto said. He had a basic understanding of the witch factors thanks to Echidna, and while he was furious at Sirius for taking hostages, he couldn't kill her without a viable way to contain her witch factor. Not to mention, her identity, he didn't want to think about it. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't seen Beatrice. He had been too focused on the new threat, and the little girl had slipped from his mind. While we prepare, I want to see Beatrice. He told Ferris since he was done with the civilians. Ferris nodded as he guided him to a random room in the mansion. They entered and he saw the frail-looking girl. Leave us alone, please. The healer looked at him weirdly before shrugging and closing the doors. Naruto leaned forward to take a better look at her. The little girl was sleeping so quietly that he could hardly even hear her soft snores. This was the first time he saw her sleep aside from what little of her memories he bothered to see. He wondered why she did, considering she didn't need to sleep. Touching Beatrice's forehead, he was surprised to find how low her temperature was. It would concern him, but again, he knew it didn't affect her. He poked her cheek a couple of times, but there was no reaction. Lastly, he activated his senjutsu to see her energy. Her reserves were meager, and she was unable to replenish them on her own, so that was the problem. Similar to Kurama, a being made of energy, Beatrice grew thinner the lower her reserves were, but instead of looking more intimidating like the fox, the little girl seemed frail and pathetic. In that case, Naruto said with a determined expression on his face as his hand glowed a light yellow color, he took her hand and focused on his knowledge of her abilities. After a couple of seconds, Beatrice opened her eyes and looked at her surroundings with a sluggish expression. She eventually found him and she seemed to be annoyed at his smiling face. How are you feeling? Naruto asked. I'm fine, but tired. Beatrice said softly, still tired after Naruto gave his chakra to her. You're such an annoyance, coming to Betty with those injuries, you're hopeless. She increased her draining on his reserves, looking less sleepy and more healthy by the second. Thank you, Beatrice, I hope I didn't worry you too much. He said. Beatrice's cheeks turned pink. Idiot, I definitely didn't cry, I mean worry. She yelled like a child as color returned to her face. Really? Oh wow. That warms my heart, Beatrice. He said with a smile. Humph. Beatrice responded as she covered her face with a blanket and turned away from Naruto, letting go of his hand. Please, try to rest, you did well. Naruto said as he left the room, not seeing the small smile Beatrice had. After Naruto gave his chakra to Beatrice, they went to meet the rest of the fighters. Inside, Wilhelm and Julius were there while waiting for them to join them. Some of the candidates were there too, having been notified by their knights of the situation, acting as the commanders. They planned to raid the city hall where Garfield fought the two figures. He told the others that there was a giant man and a slender woman, but he didn't see their face because they wore black cloaks. Come to think of it. Where's Reinhard? Chin and his friends have fired magic to summon him. Garfield wondered. Before entering the shelter, the two fired magic into the sky as a signal. However, Reinhardt, who should have appeared instantly, didn't appear. And, this isn't a pleasant thought, but... Julius said. But? He waited for Julius's answer. Feldsama's followers were separated from her and Reinhardt shortly before all this happened. It seems that they were last seen speaking to a red-haired man. He answered with a frown. Naruto blinked in confusion. Why would Heinkel look for Reinhard if the Estrias had such a bad relationship? He shook his head. It didn't matter. While Reinhard's help would have been much appreciated, his presence wasn't vital for the raid. It's unfortunate, but Reinhard has to worry about Felt's safety. It seems that we'll have to be extra careful. If this is all of us, I think we can begin to move. His back was slapped roughly. He looked behind him to see a familiar beastman looking down at him. Ricardo! He shook the man's much larger hands. You can't go anywhere without me. Ricardo smirked. I'm going too. Those words came from Crush, who had tied her hair into a ponytail and wore a green suit. She looked threatening with a sword in her waist. I'm not as strong as I was before, but I've had Wilhelm as a teacher. Besides, I can use the wind to augment my strikes. I don't intend to be a burden. Naruto looked at Wilhelm, asking for confirmation. He nodded to Naruto and allowed her to join them. Naruto would have preferred not to allow her to fight, but if Wilhelm said it was okay, then he would trust his judgment. Yes. Yes. Ferris-John too. If Crush-sama will fight, then please let Ferris-John accompany you. Please. He said, jumping like a child with his hand in the air. Crush smiled at him, appreciating his loyalty, but Ferris had a much more important role. Ferris traveled between shelters and cast healing spells on those in need. I'm very proud of your contributions. But don't mistake which battlefield you should be fighting on. She said as Ferris stopped jumping and bowed his head. Ferris looked at Naruto with a pleading look. Naruto-kun. Do a good job protecting Crush-sama, okay? Absolutely, absolutely. He said, praying that he would look past their differences and help his most important person. You bet. Naruto said with a soft smile, giving him a thumbs up. This area is completely open. Although my quasi-spirits have been sent to patrol it, they found no path we could sneak along. It seems that our only option is to approach directly. Julius had sent his spirits to scout out their surroundings to look for an alternate route for them to sneak in. The geography of this location made it difficult to launch an attack on it and made it difficult to defend it. How about you, Naruto? He looked at Naruto, showing his concern on his face. Naruto entered the Sennin mode to sense the enemies in the city hall. They are waiting for us, but there is a strange signature there. It seems to change, so be careful. As to how to attack, we have no other option but to storm in. They are expecting us and all of us are frontline fighters. He said as he changed the subject. He picked up something that he wished he hadn't. Without needing a signal, they ran up the straight road toward the plaza in front of the city hall. Holding their breaths, they waited for their enemies to surface. They are here, Naruto said as two figures fell upon them. As the group watched the large blades and slender sword flutter in the air, a soldier among them courageously drew her weapon. From the rear, the 100-man strike was unleashed. Crush had drawn her sword, and, augmented with wind magic, unleashed a strike that cut toward the enemy. Anything within her field of vision, even at a great distance, could be struck by her. This was Crush's long-range swordplay. They deflected it. Crush thought as her attack had failed to make contact. She saw the two figures survive, almost intact, from her attack. While swinging their bodies to the side, landing neatly on the stone, the two figures, dressed in black, drew their respective weapons in a well-prepared defensive formation. Two giant blades, and a single sharp sword. From top to bottom, they were indeed both clad in the despicable garb of the witch cult. Appearing to have completely brushed off the impact of that blow, they tilted their bodies forward slightly, about to kick off from the ground. Although you defended against Crush-sama's blow, can you take this? Julius said as three different colors glowed from above, the light emitted by the spirits pouring down upon the cultists. Julius's 6 quasi-spirits, working in groups of 3, attacked the giant and woman. Another light of magic, which Naruto had never seen before, applied an appalling pressure to their enemies, forcing them to kneel. Against the unbearable pressure of their enemies, Garfield and Wilhelm rushed the woman, while Ricardo swung his blade over his head as he pounced toward the giant. In a flash of silver, emanating an overwhelming pressure, the sword demon took off. Garfield and Wilhelm's inhuman strength struck downward, ready to split the enemy's defenses open. The kneeling woman turned her sword in her grip and slashed at Garfield and Wilhelm's legs. They immediately dodged, but the woman followed with the same trajectory, twisting to stretch a leg around Garfield's neck, moving him into the scope of Julius's magic. At this profound display of skill, Garfield cried out in pain, while Wilhelm cursed. Breaking their stalemate, she kicked at the old swordsman, releasing Garfield in the process. Although her movements should have been constrained, her blow was powerful enough to send Wilhelm flying. However, Naruto flashed in time to save the two combatants. His eyes tracked the woman's every move. She charged toward them as she thrust the blade of her sword and pointed at his chest where she stabbed at. Naruto's sand, flying out from his gourd, attacked her. The woman stopped her charge and dodged the sand. She ran from the sand while it chased her, but it wasn't too long until she found water pots. She grabbed one pot and threw it at the sand. She sliced it in half with her sword as the water spread over Naruto's sand and made it heavy as it died on the ground. Shit! Naruto cursed. His sand control wasn't as good as Gaara's and he didn't have a spirit to help him with it, so he unsheathed his kunai and blocked the woman's blade when she struck him. However, he used his palm to break her sword with his Sennin power. He quickly followed up with another attack, striking her head with a swift kick. The woman's body flew over from his attack, but she regained her balance and used her hand to touch the ground, flipping her body back to stand on the ground. Her head in the hood seemed to be looking at her broken sword, now just a handle. She threw a handle away and unsheathed another sword from the left side on her waist. Her head turned to look at Naruto, deeming him the greatest threat. She dashed at lightning speeds and made a quick thrust of her blade to kill him. However, Naruto's reaction was far greater than her speed as he dodged her sword attack. Naruto prepared a Rasengan on his right hand with the intent to end the fight. When he was about to make contact, Ricardo's body flew toward him and he had no choice but to power down his technique and catch the man-beast, saving him from grievous injury, but allowing the woman to change targets. "Thanks, brother, watch out!" Ricardo shouted. Naruto glanced at the giant, striking him and Ricardo with two big swords. The shinobi narrowed his azure eyes as he dodged the giant's attack and kicked his head. The man was sent flying from where he came from but regained his balance in midair. The giant ran after them again and threw a big fist at Naruto. Naruto blocked the attack by grabbing his fists, but another pair of arms came out of his cloak and attempted to crush his ribs. However, Naruto remained calm and used yellow chakra to form arms and stop the giant's attack before they could reach him. He delivered an uppercut right up the jaw with his right fist and went for another strike, but got interrupted by the woman striking her blade at him. While he fought the woman again, Ricardo managed to sever one of the giant's arms, only to be knocked back again as the giant simply reattached his arm. The front of his black robe was removed, and the giant was revealed. His skin was blue and he had 8 arms. He was very tall and had a muscular body build. He had black and white hair and orange eyes. "Korgan?" Wilhelm called out. "You know him?" Naruto asked. "No mistake. A warrior with 8 arms isn't something you just forget. I defeated him before and heard he came back alive with Volcanica. Until another rumor came that he was killed," he said with narrowed eyes. "Then our worst fears have been confirmed," Naruto said. Now they had tangible proof that the witch cult could bring people back from the afterlife. Naruto picked up a stance and focused on the giant, concentrating on his speed and power before he dashed toward it, delivering a combo of punches and kicks that sent him high into the air. Finishing with a kick that sent the giant crashing on the ground like a meteor. He was about to end him with a Rasengan when a dark flame blocked his path. The nature of the fire was even more frightening than its burning. Anything it touched crumbled to ash, which poured all over the square as it fell. Impossible. That's Amaterasu no, this one is different," Naruto thought as he looked at the large flying black creature. "No way. A dragon. Gahahahaha. That face. That stupid face. Did you save it just for me? If so, this kind lady would give you foolish apes praise. Or would you prefer saliva? You'd be very happy with my precious saliva? For you pieces of rubbish, it must be a coveted treasure, right?" The black dragon spoke, looking at Naruto and his allies. "I am Sin, Archbishop of Lust. I am Capella Emerata Lugunica-sama. Al-Huma!" Rem shouted as she fired ice spears at Capella. Capella leaned toward Rem as if wanting to lick her from top to bottom. While its attention was on Rem, Julius moved, trying to use its distraction against it. "Be burned by my 6-fold light, El Pralium." Julius's 6 spirits each gleamed with a different color as they fired a beam of light upward. When that iridescent light reached Capella, it shone white, and she began to scream. "Naruto!" He called out as Naruto had already jumped into the air with a giant Rasengan. "Odama Rasengan!" He shouted as he directly smashed the giant Rasengan on the black dragon's back, crushing her on the ground and painfully drilling on her back, ripping through flesh and scales in a sickening show. The fighters wasted no time, and once Naruto retreated they fired all they had on the dragon, who was no longer visible. As Naruto stood on top of Capella, he had his giant ray shuriken ready to cut its head off, but his eyes caught someone as he dodged a fast slash by a claw weapon. He slid back in front of the main door and saw a child with dark brown hair. He looked very familiar, from his body size to his eyes he looked almost identical to Lei. He wore green clothes. Lei, no, you're different. Who are you? Naruto demanded the boy's name. So happy, so very happy, so very very happy, because of this happiness, such incredible happiness, such incredible happiness, such incredibly incredible happiness, deserves a feast. Feast. A perfect feast. The boy said. My brother told me that you are a delicious meal. We are witch cults and archbishops of gluttony, Roy Alford. As Roy claimed to be gluttony, Capella started to get up. However, there was something different about her. The sounds of bone cracking and flesh mending were heard by all as the dragon roared. You're healing. Naruto said, stating the obvious. Shouldn't you be able to tell on sight? Did you actually have to ask? How foolish are you? But this compassionate lady shall answer you. As you can see, I'm obviously immortal. Capella said with a mad cackle. Oh really? If you're immortal then I'll have to use it. Naruto was interrupted by a swinging sword. The woman tried to decapitate him while his attention was on the dragon. He used his dodge to kick the woman toward the other combatants who immediately pounced on her and the man while he blocked Roy's swing. The shinobi took Roy's arm with his chakra arms and started to slam it on the ground repeatedly. While a normal human's head would have been turned into mush, Roy seemed very much capable of taking the punishment without cracking. Seeing the dazed child, he just threw him into the city hall, where he went through a brick wall and brought it down on himself. He was more than likely knocked out by it, or dead. When Capella noticed her fellow archbishop being manhandled by the knight, she started to fly up and headed back to her objective. She didn't look back or plan to attack them. Naruto, I know you can help us, but I need you to stop Capella. You're the only one that can stop her. Leave this one to us, yelled Julius as he blocked another strike. Don't worry, brother, just go. Ricardo smirked as he gave Naruto a thumb up and planned to stay behind. Captain, let's go. Garfield yelled. Naruto clenched his fists, but he sighed calmly and nodded with Julius. He started to run with Garfield, Crush, and Rem toward the dragon but looked back a second when he sensed a powerful presence. It seemed that Wilhelm was fighting a red-haired woman. He hoped he was strong enough for this new challenge. Wilhelm nodded to Naruto before he deflected the woman's sword. He saw her starting to run away from him. Do not flee from me, show me your swordplay, Teresa. Crush, what is it? Naruto asked as he looked at Crush, who didn't move forward. However, he noticed her cheeks were marked by a pink hue. Wait. What? I'm sorry, but just now, I noticed something. Crush spoke rather weakly as Naruto prepared to jump down. Naruto looked at her with surprise, and she looked back at him with a stiff expression. I seem to have a certain fear of heights. She confessed, looking away from him. Naruto blinked his eyes a couple of times while looking at an embarrassed Crush, surprised to see the military woman's weakness. He scratched the back of his head, not knowing what to do with her. Hope on my back, he said as he bent down and offered her a piggyback ride. I'm sorry for making you carry me, she said with a blush as she wrapped her arms around his neck and her thighs were hooked up by his arms. Please don't drop me, she whispered as she held him tight. Never, Naruto said as they prepared to jump. Ready? Always, Captain, Garfield said with his feral smile. Naruto-kun, you, me, and Amelia are going to have a serious talk about this, Ram said with a pout while looking at him with narrowed eyes. Wait, what? Naruto asked, not knowing what Rem was talking about. Go. Then, everyone jumped off. For a moment, Crush seemed to let loose a small kaya. Naruto decided against commenting. He used chakra to stick on the wall. Rem used Morningstar's chain to descend. And Garfield used his hard body and descended by stabbing his fingers on the concrete. They were at the outer wall of the city hall and saw a window, so they prepared to break in. As the glass shattered, Naruto and the others went into the broadcast room. Naruto looked at Crush, who let out a small cry when they jumped. Her face was freaking red. I apologize for screaming, Crush said as she got off Naruto's back and stood on her wobbly feet. Wow, it doesn't matter. Let's go. He tried with all his strength not to laugh. He and his friends looked around and found a black dragon. It stared blankly at the four who had just jumped in. The same massive body that they had seen on the roof was stuffed into the room. The black dragon had folded her wings, facing the door that one would normally enter from. "This scent," Garfield said, sounding like he knew this scent as he sniffed at the black dragon smell. He reacted quickly as he stopped Naruto before he attacked the black dragon. Naruto turned and looked at Garfield. Before he could ask him, Kurama spoke to him in Mindscape. "Something isn't right here." "That's not her," Kurama said. "Wait, what?" Naruto thought as he looked at the black dragon once. "If this isn't her, then who is it?" "Garrick Thompson." Garfield called his stepfather's name, his voice shaking in horror and shock. For a moment, his memories flashed back to where he watched his mother have dinner with her husband. Love. Smiles. Family. This memory made him feel happy, really happy, but now, this moment was indescribable. Garfield didn't get why he was turned into that horrible creature. He didn't do anything wrong. Garrick was a man who loved his wife, Rayala or Reshia, and his family. A man who took care of Garfield's mother and made her happy. He even tried to help her remember her past, even if he failed. "Garfield, is that you?" Garrick asked. The black dragon looked at the blonde boy. Who did this to you? Tell me." Garfield demanded to know who turned his stepfather into a dragon. Who was cruel enough to strip his mother's happiness once again? Gahahaha. Poor kitten. You're a crybaby. Crying over my stupid experiment. Everyone looked at a young girl with short, golden hair, who came from the broadcast room. She wore revealing clothes, hot pants, leggings, a bikini, and nothing more. This scent. This presence. This girl was Capella Emerata Lugnica. Why you did this to him? Why? Garfield yelled, wanting answers. Why? Maybe it's just because I can't help but create disgusting creatures. It's horrifying and disgusting, right? You motherfucker. I'll kill you. He roared as he transformed into a gigantic golden tiger. The whole building shook when the roar bounced on the walls. The roar was so powerful that it threatened to bring the building down. Naruto tried to stop Garfield before he went off and killed Capella, but he had to save Crush from falling debris. Garfield, don't. Naruto yelled, but it was too late to stop him as he charged toward Capella. Garfield raised his fist and tried to punch Capella's face, but Capella smirked as she transformed into a small flying insect and dodged his punch. His fist impacted the ground with such force that the whole building started to come down. Naruto grabbed Crush and dashed toward the exit only to have it collapse when they were about to get out. He was about to summon Kurama only to stop when the scaly body of Garrick stood over them, shielding them. Even with the entire building gone, the enraged Garfield still tried to land a blow on the Archbishop, only to miss again and again. Garfield, that's enough. You don't let anger get to you. She purposely dashed. Naruto yelled as he was about to stop Garfield, but he got interrupted by a familiar kid in a brown cloak. You. He glared at Lei, who blocked him with a psychotic smile on his face. We meet again. He said happily as he attacked again only to retreat when a gust of wind nearly beheaded him. He ducked and jumped away. Lei looked at the attacker and found a familiar woman, Crush. Her expression was downright murderous. I know who you are. You're the one who took away my memories. Crush yelled as she charged her enemy. Rem had her Oni horn on her forehead and charged against Lei along with Crush. Naruto nodded and went to help Garfield when the dragon blew dust into his eyes, blinding him. He recoiled when the dust stung his eyes and rubbed them to get it out before someone took a shot at him. It didn't take a second, but when he regained his vision, he found the dragon on the other side of the courtyard with a deep wound on his stomach gushing blood. Garfield was holding him and shouting. Mr. Thompson. Garfield got his senses back as he used the strength of his beast form to hold the large dragon in his arms. He inspected the beast's body and found a deep wound, the edges of which were sprouting black veins. Aw man, a stupid old man saved him. How foolish. Do you think you can handle my dragon blood? Capella-sama's blood is different from ubiquitous common blood. Mine is mixed with dragon's blood, which contains a great curse. Capella hummed happily. Garfield tried to use healing magic to remove whatever curse the dragon had injected in him. The young man tried with desperation to help his stepfather, to stop history from repeating itself, to keep his mother's happiness. "Please, heal. I won't let you die," he yelled, tears of pure desperation staining his cheeks. "You stupid human. You can't save him. My dragon blood can't be cured." Very sad that I don't know how to dash. Capella's face exploded into a gory mess when a black boot impacted her skull. She was launched like a bullet towards a big piece of debris, one she went through like it wasn't even there. A few seconds passed and her partially destroyed head popped up from within the rubble. She looked at the blonde that attacked her with a glare. Capella instantly noticed something wrong with him. His eyes were now a yellow color with a plus sign in the middle. His eyes were partially shadowed by his hair, and the sight of him brought fear into her heart. His mana was without a doubt massive right now. How could a normal human possess such a great amount of mana? Wouldn't his gate break immediately? The little girl broke herself free from her debris prison and began to laugh uncontrollably. The situation was totally ridiculous and hilarious to her, so much so that the imminent danger was lost to her. "You idiot! You can't go." Her monologue was immediately interrupted when the knight reappeared behind her. She looked down and saw that her left hand was severed from her body and was now in his grasp. She laughed again and jumped away from him to regenerate. "You absolute fool. You understand nothing, do you? I'll regenerate immediately." "Huh." When Capella willed her left hand to grow again, she received no response. She looked at the stump that was once her arm and watched in panic how nothing happened. Time passed and the only thing that could be heard were the sounds of battle and crying. No mending of flesh was heard. Her whole body began to shake when she looked at him. He was in the same spot she last saw him, but he now had a black rod in his right hand and two orbs floating behind his head. Her left arm was in his left hand, slowly turning to dust. One he flicked at her once it was halfway through. "You're the worst archbishop I've seen so far, but you just had to make my apprentice cry and make this personal, didn't you?" Naruto's low voice was heard by her even if the distance between them was great. He saw with interest how she remained silent, apparently in shock. He allowed her to speak for the last time, waiting patiently for her to come to terms with the fact that that arm wasn't going to go back, that she was going to die. Even after all the time that passed since the war, he was still able to show kindness to his enemies even if his heart had grown cold since then. Sirius was alive because she was easy to beat and contain, but to leave alive an immortal, bloodthirsty dragon wasn't something he'd do. What did you do to me? What the fuck did you do to me?" Her face was one of rage. Her shout was accompanied by spittle that flew out of her mouth. But even in the face of her fear and rage, the blonde knight remained quiet. "Answer me." She seemed to have reached her limit because her form started to bulge and change into her previous draconic form. Once the transformation was complete, she ascended into the heavens and lunged at him with her maw open to devour him. What happened wasn't visible to the naked eye. 1 second the dragon was about to swallow him whole and the next her head and her body were flying in different directions. Once she crashed into the earth, dust went flying in every direction and her body was nowhere to be seen. The sounds of fighting remained even after the dragon disappeared, making him look at the fight that the maid and the candidate were fighting. It seemed that the 3 participants were bloody and very much tired. Lei was trying to get through Crush's constant barrage of sword strikes, while Rem was holding her injured left leg but was still in fighting condition. The fight ended once the archbishop tripped, losing his balance for a second. His head exploded like a balloon once Morningstar hit its mark. Lei's corpse just plopped to the ground, unmoving. The 2 women cheered their victory over the archbishop before collapsing to the ground in exhaustion. Seeing they were fine, Naruto went to see Garfield, who had stopped crying. On the way there, his head was assaulted by the image of a little, blonde girl. He shook his head and continued on his way to his friend. Whoever this child was wasn't as important as being there for his precious person in his time of need. On the other side of the clearing, Rem got up from the floor and went to check on Crush. "Crush-sama?" She shook the girl gently but got no response. "Crush-sama." She shook even harder this time, only to receive the same results. She was fine a minute ago, why wasn't she waking up? OVA 5. Alright, class. I'll draw the names one at a time, and when your name is called, you'll show us your talent. Roswell announced to his students, mixing their names in a box, and grabbing one. The first name is Ryujin-sensei. He pointed at Eric. What? He looked in shock at being called by his name. Roswell-sensei, why do I have to participate? Because Roswell-sensei said, wouldn't it be Fuin? Cositas tried to imitate Roswell's singing voice. That settles it, then. Ram said, her tone one of finality. We're all going to be friends here, after all. You should go first and set an example. Roswell said. Eric grunted in shame, but he was a soldier and he had been given an order. I am Eric von Rurugen, TA of Class 2. I humbly submit my performance of our Empire's national anthem. Oh no! Tanya thought, realizing that Eric is going to perform his song in front of their classmates. When Eric began to sing, everyone recoiled in actual disgust, except for Amelia and Beatrice. They didn't understand what he was saying, but they didn't appreciate the horrible singing. Are you seeing this, Kazuma? Darkness asked, sounding happy and excited. Yes, I'm seeing this. Kazuma said dryly. He's humiliating himself. He sure is. Everyone, both human and inhuman, is looking at him with eyes filled with derision. Darkness said, showing Kazuma everyone's reaction to Eric's lack of talent. Their reaction was dry and few of them were embarrassed that they were friends of Eric. Ains covered his face, not wanting to remember what it felt like to be in a talent show. He didn't do anything, but he felt so embarrassed watching Eric's performance. In this moment, he is the most humiliated being of any race on the planet. Eric's singing hadn't stopped yet, but he wanted to kill himself. Please. Someone stop me. He thought while singing. I wish everyone looked at me this way. Darkness said. Oh no. There she goes. Kazuma said. Man, where is all this lust coming from? Any ideas? Naruto asked a laughing Garfield. I don't know, Cap, but maybe there's a mud around here, somewhere. I know they are always lustful. Garfield answered, looking around when he heard a shriek of pleasure around the room, but the singing didn't allow him to locate it. A few minutes later, Eric was finally done showing everyone his talent. The poor man was looking at a wall blankly, looking as if he'd been dragged through hell. Now that was out of the way, Roswell began to mix the names again. He picked one and read it out loud. Oh. It's Naruto-kun. He called the blonde's name as he stood up from his desk. Naruto walked in front of his classmates, wondering what he should do. Maybe I could do this, he thought as he clapped his hand together. Transform, he said as a white cloud covered him. When the white cloud disappeared, there was an exact copy of Roswell. The real Roswell said nothing, but his left eye twitched slightly. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Roswell L. Mathers, I will be your new teacher, Naruto said, using the clown's voice. Amelia-sama, you must win the talent show. I will award you a Rayamaman. Remkuen, as your maester, cook me a Rayamaman. Roswell's favorite food. Amelia and Rem started to giggle at his failed attempt to impersonate the magician while covering their mouth. Of course, he would do something like this. Beatrice looked away covering her face and Garfield was laughing out loud. Ram-chan. Naruto called the pink-haired maid's name. Can you pass dash? His face caved in when a book was thrown to his face, knocking him out. His body hit the floor and another plume of smoke revealed his real body to the students. His eyes were nothing but a pair of spirals. Everyone looked at Ram, who had an outstretched arm. Naruto is, well. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist it. The way he talked and acted. He needed to be taken down. Ram said, looking away. Ram does have a point. Amelia, Rem, take him to the nurse's office. His talent is certainly satisfactory, but it just sort of uncomfortable, Roswell said as his eye twitched repeatedly. After Amelia and Rem took Naruto to the nurse's office, Roswell continued to mix the names. After some more mixing, he retrieved a name. Oh. It's Weiss, he announced. Yes, sir, Weiss said as he stood up from the desk, looking determined to do the talent show. He walked in front of his classmates. Tanya prayed to no one that Weiss wouldn't embarrass himself and them by doing something stupid. Well, Weiss won't do anything stupid, I'm sure. I am Mateus Johann Weiss, of the Imperial 203rd Aerial Mage Battalion. I have no particular talent skills, so the least I can do is remove my first button, he said, unbuckling his belt and unbuttoning his white sweater. Interference spell, Tanya said as she casted a spell to shock Weiss, knocking him out before he could strip. I'm sorry you all had to see that. Ains looked at the girl shock her soldier nervously. Maybe I was wrong when I said we could get along, he thought, looking at three guys drag the perverted guy. Darkness saw what happened and began to daydream. I hope she does that to me, too. Why don't you shut up, Darkness? Kazuma yelled. After a brief break, Roswell picked up another name from the box. Next up is Darkness. I can't do this alone, so. Can somebody help me? Warren stood up with a determined look on his face. Me. You can count me in, he said, wanting to help the pretty lady. Oh no. Lieutenant Grants. Why? Tanya whispered in agony. What were her soldiers doing? After a couple of minutes of looking for a very specific tool, Darkness began her presentation. My talent is my strong body. To show this, I'm going to have this tough-looking man punish me with his whip. Darkness said, bending over and bracing herself for the pain. Grants, however, was looking at the whip as if in trance, questioning why he even volunteered. Wait, what? Now, man in military uniform. Punish me mercilessly with your whip like always you do. I do not always whip you. Immediately he could feel the disapproving stares of everyone in the room. He tried to look for strength in his teammates only for them to give him their backs. I'm sorry. I'm sorry she's such a pervert. I'm really sorry. Kazuma thought, not looking at the distressed man. Wait a minute. Aqua raised her hand. Yes, Aqua, what is your question? Roswell asked. Did they skip my turn? After Darkness's turn, it was supposed to be my turn. I know Roswell-sensei is going to pick my name. So. Why does? She pointed her finger at Megumin. Why does she have to go first? Wheel. You see, the public of this talent show would love to see Megumin in action. She's a very popular girl with a voice that reminds me of someone else, although I can't quite grasp it. He said, pointing his finger at Megumin. He thought that her voice was familiar. I'd prefer a target that wasn't a bronze statue, but thank you. Megumin said, her chest swelling in pride for being the center of attention. You sure about this, sir? Kazuma tried to warn Roswell. She may be off her rocker, but her explosion magic is really amazing. I'd love to see it, then. Ain said, wanting to see Megumin's magic. Me too. Naruto said, appearing with the girls out of thin air with a huge band-aid on his forehead. Since Megumin's spell was very powerful, they decided to out the class and into their courtyard. Megumin took a deep breath, beginning to cast her ultimate magic. Within this power dwells a shining light. It guides the unseen to me and calls to me from within the chaos. In this moment, explosion magic beckons me. Strike my foe! Explosion! She casted a massive explosive at her target, a normal dummy that was instantly evaporated by the attack. She immediately went down once she casted it, unable to continue standing. She wasn't lying. That was really impressive. Roswell praised Megumin's magic. Perhaps this is a good time to end the show. No, not yet. Ains interrupted before Roswell could end the show. That spell was incredible. I feel fortunate to have witnessed it. I would like to take this opportunity to show a talent of my own. And what would it be? Ains nodded, beginning to cast a spell as multiple magic circles began to appear. He focused and a great light blinded everyone. It wasn't long before everyone felt snow touch their skin. It was a nice, snowy day. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kayashin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips. If you liked the content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll stay here until next time.